Because now you are leaving the mainstream and entering into the fringe. Well, greetings, Cardinal Sin Nation. It is I, Cardinal Sin, and welcome to another episode of Into the Fringe. And tonight we have a hell of a show for you. You will understand my pun momentarily. Our guest is Walter Bosley, who is an investigator of occult historical mysteries, author of pulp fiction novels, a screenwriter, and has appeared on the History Channel's Ancient Aliens. After 20 years in national security, Walter Bosley runs his small press publishing company, Lost Continent Library, founded in 2002. This year is the 20th anniversary of Lost Continent Library. Bosley has traveled much of the world and has been a publisher and author for 2 decades. Walter spends his time writing fiction and nonfiction, as well as investigative strange mysteries. The latest news about his projects and books can be found at lostcontinentlibrary.com. My friend Walter Bosley, welcome back to Into the Fringe.
Hello again, everyone.
Good to see you. Ah, I see you have a Wolfman.
The Universal Wolfman, courtesy of my co-editor on the Book of Werewolves, Todd Wood.
Nice.
How you doing?
I have all kinds of kitschy stuff to show you, but I'm going to hold off for a little while. And before we do our tiki pour-up, I just wanted to acknowledge some folks in the chat here that we have with us. The one and only Darius Munchausen is here. Greetings. Cosmic Squirrel is here. Greetings. The Mighty Herc 130 is here. Hail. Jonocide is here. Hello.
Jonocide.
Rui Goncalves is here. Hello and greetings. Masters Maniacs of Mexico is here. Hail. And as people are rolling in, we will say hello to them a little bit later. That wasn't me.
That was me adjusting my volume.
Ah, well, that's fine. Nothing wrong with a little adjusting of the volume. So let's go ahead and go to our Tiki Pour Up. And the first part of the Tiki Pour Up is always the new one that I have versus whichever one that Walter has. And I assume that you're going with the Gorn.
I'm going with the Gorn because he's just more festive than the Captain Kirk.
Well, and probably more powerful. And since we're going Tiki versus Tiki, mine is Michael Myers.
Oh, Michael Myers versus the Gorn. There's a movie.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Yeah, excellent.
So let's go ahead and do our pour up. I am starting with Rockstar Recovery lemonade flavor, and
I'm doing caffeinated ice.
I also have coconut water, which has potassium in it, which is hard for me to get because being a vegan, I really dislike bananas. I force myself to eat them anyway. So, and by the way, don't forget to remind me that I had another helicopter experience just before we went on the air.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get pouring. Nice shirt, Walter.
Is stylish.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, this shirt, Bill, Cardinal, is graphical. Might be on slowly but surely.
You're working on a movie.
Indeed.
Wow. That sounds pretty cool.
Oh. That's always
time.
This kaleidoscope grimoire, which is my now I'm doing an echo. Is that me?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Okay.
Otherwise, if it were you, you would hear it on my side.
Oh.
So it's because you're not wearing headphones and you're using a microphone and speakers.
Well, no. I've never had that before. Okay.
But I can't hear it. So as long as it's not, making it outright difficult for you to understand.
No. As long as I'm not talking over you. Basically, Kaleidoscope Grimoire is the film I'm working on, which was inspired by various esoteric texts, primarily Tibetan and Egyptian, and my own individual twist on the or my own storyline inspired by those, infused. That's what I'm infused by the Tibetan and Egyptian text.
Well, I've read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, but I still haven't read the Tibetan Book of the Dead.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting read. I will tell you. So.
Well, if it's anything like the Egyptian Book of the Dead, then it must be. I thought that was a really interesting book. So, how's it tasting, your concoction?
This is good. See, I added, and I already forget the name, but I bought this little health food store kind of concoction of various organic, natural items, which forms kind of an energy. And it comes in a little jar like that. And
like a 5-hour energy jar? About that same size?
Yeah. And I poured that in first with this on top of it. And pretty good. I'll let you know if it gives me some Popeye energy.
Popeye energy, boy, that's something I haven't heard of from a long time. Brian Smith says got an echo. How do I sound, everybody out there in chat land? Can you? Walter has an echo.
What do I do?
I don't hear it. Let me see if maybe it's on my side.
Yeah, because when I turn the volume of my speakers down, I then lose me. And I lose all audio. Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens. This is the only one that you can hear me on.
Can you hear me echoing?
No, but evidently they can't.
What about this? Is this? No, I got rid of.
Now you're echoing. Yeah.
What about that?
Yep.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. So I'll click echo cancellation back on.
Yeah. Echo cancellation is important.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's never happened before. This is a new one. Wait a minute. It's gone.
Good.
There we go. Whatever we were clicking it. Okay.
One of us got it right. Anyway.
There we go.
On with the show.
Mm-hmm.
On with the show. And hail to Brian Smith and the Reluctant Dragon and Joe Salazar. My goodness, we are just getting a hell of an audience tonight, Walter. And one of the reasons why I said hell of an audience is because tonight our topic is werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
So
indeed,
I want to mention to everybody to please subscribe to the Walter Bosley YouTube channel, and please subscribe to the Cardinal Sin YouTube channel.
Indeed.
And then we can move on with our show. So as I mentioned, today our topic is werewolves and that sort of thing. But before we get started, Walter, I wanted to ask you, what updates do you have about the reprints of Joseph Farrell's books?
Oh, yes. Giza Death Star 1, of course, it has been available.
That was his very first book, right?
That was his first book in this category. Now, you got to remember, Joseph Farrell was well known, still is, in the theological
religious studies
world. Yeah, religious studies world. He is well known and highly respected as a scholar of theology, and had been for years, and has written much. He calls it the tome, his biggest one. And then he decided to go into our nerdy world, our weird world, you could say. And the Giza Death Star was, yes, his first foray into that, because of his interesting theory that he had in the 90s, and even before that he was formulating it for years. But he came out with the Giza Death Star, I think, in the early 2000s. I'm gonna have to look at my own the book that I just published. And now the Giza Death Star Deployed, which is number 2 in the trilogy, that has been live and available only at lulu.com since last night. So
awesome.
And it's already selling. So
that's great.
People are scooping it up, and you should get yours too.
You know, if I didn't have a show to prepare for all day today, I would have gone and got
well, I was speaking of the rhetorical collective you.
Of course.
That's why I looked at him.
Royal we, yes.
Oh, and by the way, Giza Death Star Destroyed, which is the third, I should have that out within the next 7 to 10 days. The nice thing about a holiday weekend, which we have coming up next weekend, remember, is that there's a whole lot of other things you can't do and take care of. So, you know, you can get a lot of other stuff done. So for me, holidays can be holiday weekends. I can actually get some publishing business done. So look for Giza Death Star Destroyed in another week. But get very those cool. Too. It's a fascinating theory.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, it's still the name of his website, gizadeathstar.com.
That's right. Check it out. Check it out.
And hopefully sometime soon. Someday.
I would say it's going to happen in definitely the coming year. I think you're going to get that.
I hope so.
Definitely in the first half of 2023.
But of course, I am hoping against hope that I can get Dr. Mr. Joseph Farrell, Esquire, on Into the Fringe.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, and it's not for lack of trying. I've tried. You've tried. We've all tried.
He's a very busy man, and remember, since his health issue hit him unexpectedly, he had to kind of slow things down a little bit.
You know what? I totally forgot about that. That's
restructure how he does things. So, you know, but he is going strong. He's writing.
Good.
And he's got something new soon. I don't know that much about it, so we usually let him release them, and that's when we find out.
Herc130 in the chat has made a very funny comment, which you'll probably recognize.
I should get a little. You know what? I should get a little mini book and write Chinese menu on it, and
there
put it
you go.
in this guy's hand, right?
But Herc130 in the chat is referencing Young Frankenstein and says, "They're wolves. They're wolves. Their castle," which I just saw the other day with my friend Jeremy, who had never seen it, and so we saw it in glorious HD, a great restoration, really
on a big
stuff.
screen.
Oh yeah, he's got, I think, a 50-inch TV.
Oh, there you go.
Mr. MH is here, and he says, "Hail to the awesome Cardinal Sin. Just saying a quick hello because I'm at work. Hail to the chat. You are all awesome. And hail, Walter. Great to see you again, mate. Great to see you again, mate." And because he's at work, I'm going to go ahead and ask his question, even though we usually save audience questions until the second hour. He says, question, Skinwalker Ranch has had its share of werewolf-like cryptids. For example, the large wolf that attacked a calf and the and we're going to talk about that later. And can Walter share his thoughts on this?
Okay.
So the first part anyway.
We know that, first of all, that the whole Skinwalker Ranch thing is problematic because there's quite a lot of BS that has been piled on.
Although they have had cattle mutilations there, right?
I think that's
allegedly
part of what I've heard. My thing is, though, you guys have heard me say it. I like to look for a nugget of truth in things, right? Rather than just there's very few things I will just dismiss after taking one look at it. Flat Earth is the one thing that comes to mind. But my understanding, I haven't really done a deep dive on Skinwalker Ranch, but my understanding is that before all the wacky stuff that we hear about that's been piled on, that there were some interesting things connected with that location. Now, whether that was just whatever local native lore is connected with the site, or whether that was any kind of legitimate stuff that, say, going back in history, early settlers or non-native settlers, or up in the modern era, that's worth considering and looking into. But all the popular stuff, particularly since the whole NIDS thing was there, and now I think there's the guy that is wanting, his thing is tourism, kind of like Bigelow's, right? With hotels.
Except Bigelow's is space tourism.
Yeah, wants to turn it into, this is the rumor, he wants to turn it into kind of a paranormal Disneyland, so to speak, right? And that's what some people say. And then you have
take your own life into your own hands, I suppose.
Yeah, you have, when I say Disneyland, I mean emphasis on the fabrication of the experience. But then you have your secret commando types, or your alleged special ops kind of guys who make all sorts of claims about what they saw and what they experienced and what's going on there. And my best recollection is, in the last couple of years, there have been people, who've come to just not believe those stories anymore, or debunk them, so Skinwalker Ranch, mixed bag. But in all fairness, I would have to do a deeper dive than I have at this point on it. And
certainly I will say this, the TV show has its fair share of total bullshit.
Wow. That's part of the problem. When I say problematic, is what they're pushing on the TV show. And we all know what happened.
It reminds me a lot of Ghost Hunters on the History Channel. And I only watched the first 3 seasons of that, but by the second season, they were already getting like grips and cameramen and stuff like that to make ghosts appear, because they would screw in a light bulb almost enough to get it to make the light bulb go off, or use a flashlight with a battery, I think, something like that. And then they would back it off just a little bit, and then all they had to do was basically hit the table or whatever, and the light would turn on. The ghost is there right after they ask the question, is there anyone here? And then the light goes on. Oh my God. And Skinwalker Ranch, the TV show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, I think is what it's called. It has that very bogus kind of feel to it, just like that show.
Well, I think anyone who, and spoiler alert, I come from the position of being someone who is convinced that there's some reality to this paranormal stuff to whatever degree. Okay. But I don't believe every claim. Okay. As you know, and most people familiar with me know. And so I come from that position. So what I was going to say is, I think most people that have experienced anything genuine will tell you it's often much more subtly manifested than the stuff you see on these TV shows. And you can go long gaps of time without anything happening, without experiencing it at all. You can go weeks, you can go months, years, or whatever.
Sure.
And
they got stuff on every episode, and the episodes that nothing happens, they shoot rockets up into the sky and do all kinds of stuff, and they've got that security guy that walks around with a shotgun and never uses it, and he's always making decisions about, he's the health and safety officer, and I'm not sure about this digging. Maybe we shouldn't dig. We'll have to get on the horn with Brandon, the owner, and see if we can dig, because the people that sold us the property said, whatever you do, don't dig, right?
Yeah.
So God forbid they should fucking dig.
Yeah, if there was any place with as much on-demand activity as you see on these shows,
exactly,
this would be making huge headlines. You would have real scientists out there immediately trying to measure all this, because it would be finally at last there seems to be some solid evidence, repeatable evidence of paranormal manifestations. So yeah, that's the problem with it. Is hey,
well, I will.
I'm going to step behind the curtain to momentarily deal with a loud dog situation,
so that we can pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, I apologize, but
all right,
all I gotta do is close one door and I'm back.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I will go ahead and highlight some of the chat here. Darius Munchausen did find the links, and doing a great job tonight, Darius. And great to see Canadian Spider-Man here. Thanks for being here, everybody, of course. But it's good to have a couple of mods in the audience, so that your channel gets big enough, and suddenly sex bots and trolls start getting in your chat, and you need to have good mods to take care of those. You've hit the big time when you've got sex bots and trolls in your chat, right, Walter?
Oh yes, yeah. My little werewolves were acting out, so I had to go close their door.
The werewolf of silence.
Yeah, so we got that covered. Yeah, you're right with the bots. You have to just look at it as a badge of honor that somebody's decided that they're going to get something out of botting your live chat. So
yeah, well, it's like a rite of passage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to mention, in case Mr. MH is still listening, this is about dogmen from George Knapp's Skinwalker Ranch book. One night, 2 patrolmen from the Bureau of Indian Affairs were driving on the dirt road adjacent to the ranch. They saw 2 figures standing on the road. Both men were smoking cigarettes. When the BIA patrolmen approached, they were shocked to see 2 dogmen. The dogmen disappeared, leaving the burning cigarettes on the road. So that's according to these two Bureau of Indian Affairs officers.
Yeah.
And since you were in the AFOSI, I don't know if that means that you're an agent or an operative, or
I was a special agent for the
agent.
OSI.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because sometimes you've slapped my wrist when I called you something else. So.
I was not. I was an operative with the FBI.
Oh, okay.
All right. I was undercover, in my assignment.
Right.
And I was
national
on the
security stuff.
Blah blah blah. But with the OSI, I was an actual federal badged and credential. I had a credential with the FBI as an operative, but I had the badge and the gun and everything, the full title and authority with the OSI. And then when I left that, I became an operative working under a cover around the world. I think this is interesting, and I have something to throw out there for people to think about with these stories of dogmen smoking cigarettes and other interesting, apparently non-human or human hybrid type of people, humanoids.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 2000s, when I was working in counterterrorism, working around the world, we had this outfit I worked for. We had at our disposal in a couple of towns that I worked in. I was in Africa, East Africa, in this particular time. We had at our disposal an interesting set of tools, and these tools were literally masks and hands, fake hands that would fit over our own like gloves. Now,
I thought you were going to say, I have a very special set of skills. I will find you.
Yeah, that too. But here's what's interesting about that is these particular masks and hands were designed specifically for undercover stuff for the intel agencies to use by a husband and wife team who since then retired and wrote a book about working in disguise and undercover identity, in the clandestine service for the CIA. And by the way, in the last couple of years, their technology has hit the market. And if you'll notice, you go out there on the internet, you see these masks where, a 25-year-old guy puts on an old man mask and it looks real. Okay.
Oh, so this is like hit the Halloween market and stuff.
It's a super soft kind of latex that is just, when I saw these, it was, over 20 years ago, it was incredible. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I saw these things 20 years before.
So it's an over the head rubber mask.
Over the head. And it can make, I'm telling you, it can make, me, I'm a.
So like the facial recognition thing is kaput.
Yeah. Look how white I am when I'm not tan. And I, from.
Oh, that's what the hands are for.
From 5 feet away, you saw me sitting in a car. Mm-hmm. I would look like an African man.
Or Hispanic,
some of these disguises were. Because where we were working, I would have stood out as, and I'm telling you, they really are incredible. And so let's go back to this. We would only use them at night, by the way, which makes them even more believable. Okay. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. That technology has been available to the intelligence world for decades.
Right.
Okay. So from my perspective, being personally experienced with that disguise technology, I'm not going to doubt that this guy saw two wolf men, dog men, what have you, mm-hmm. standing on the side of the road smoking cigarettes. Khartoum, Sudan. Someone asked me where I was.
Yeah, Cam's Crash Courses asked Walter Bosley, Sudan, Djibouti. I was in East Africa as well, but you said North Africa, right?
Northeast Africa, Khartoum, Sudan.
Khartoum, okay.
Yeah.
So Sudan
is sub-Saharan. Yeah.
Correct.
Anyway, you know, so this is something, and look, it would be very, very easy and a hell of a lot of fun if you were trying to mess with people, mess with people who believe in these things, and you applied that technology to, look like some type of alien human hybrid or whatever. So next time you see these alleged, amazing looking films, documentaries where they're supposedly showing, a really lifelike alien, think about that, particularly if it's humanoid or whatever, because if the dimensions of the person's,
they could make a gray and everything.
They could totally make it realistic, particularly under certain lighting conditions. So you know what, I think those dogmen, if the story's true, if the person is not just making it up, my money is that it was two guys connected somehow with the intel world, the clandestine service.
They were just fucking with the people at Skinwalker Ranch.
And they had these masks, and they were just fucking with these guys.
Why, Walter? Why would they do these things?
Well, first of all, for fun.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. If you're trying to establish a reputation for a particular place to be something,
to get, say, a billionaire to buy the property.
Yeah, or to divert attention. Remember, there's always that thing, if they're having you look over here, if the UFO or the crazy thing is there, turn around and see what's behind you, because that's very possibly what they don't want you to see.
One thing that I do still believe in from Greg Bishop's world is do not engage. I love that tagline. Now, that doesn't mean don't look at it if you see a craft in the sky, or a light that you think is a craft or whatever. But yeah, definitely look around, take the temperature of the room, so to speak, figure out what else is going on, because it would have to be a mighty long branch and a mighty long string to hang that UFO out there, right?
Well, remember that they've been working on the holographic projection technology. Materially since the 1960s.
I remember hearing, 15 years ago that in China they saw a city over the ocean, and it would just appear and then disappear and appear and disappear. So all kinds of interesting stuff.
Someone explained that as an atmospheric type of effect, but
some debunker, no doubt.
Yeah, or what, it could have been both. It certainly could have been a reflection of a identifiable land-based city, but the Chinese could have been testing or playing with a technology to project such a reflection. So it could be, in fact, using the atmosphere to the benefit of the projection. Why not? Bounce it off clouds, that kind of thing.
Yep. And Cam's Crash Courses says, when I was in the 95th PSYOPs Brigade Airborne, we used to fuck with people all the time. It was our job. So there you go. And now I do remember Rosemary Ellen Guiley writing about dogmen, and the witness in the case of the cigarette smoking dogmen, when you read the actual account rather than just my little short summary of it, mentioned that they had dog legs. They were standing on their hind legs. I believe they were wearing trench coats. And I don't know how you smoke a cigarette with paws, but it does give me pause to wonder about that.
Well, they have little fingers, right?
Sort of.
They just lack the opposable thumb. But
I guess if you had it in like a cigarette holder, you could put it in their dew claw.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
but
since he went as far as dog legs, then I would have to know more about it before I would buy that. But
now, did I ask you for a short update about Kaleidoscope Grimoire, or did we just mention the movie?
We already mentioned it earlier. Where I'm at, though, I didn't give an update.
Please.
Where I'm at is, of course, some time ago, I finished shooting the live actor parts, except the stuff with my lead character, which I'll shoot later because it's actually very little. I'm entering the phase pretty soon where I'll be shooting the stop motion animation, which is most of the film, the overwhelming majority of the film.
I didn't know that.
So I am going to be kind of beginning to put together my little animation studio, the tables and stuff, to start with the sets. I'll start putting this together during the holidays, and then after the first of the year, I'll really jump right back into production by starting to shoot the animation. And since I'm the director and the head of my studio, I'm taking my time to do it right. I don't want to rush through it. I want my producers to be happy with.
You got to keep your producers happy.
That's right. Very important. With what they have attributed. I don't want them to, I want it to be more than just a good tax write-off for them. But no, seriously though, I'm going to take my time with it, and but I am excited to be when I will be starting to do the next phase, because I will show little teasers of the animation as I go, because I want people. It's fun to share. Oh, look at this glimpse, or oh, look what I'm doing here. I mean, I believe in saving the really good stuff for little bits of it in the trailer and for people to see the film. But I'll be teasing that. I won't be able to resist teasing the animation segments.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because it just for some reason popped into my mind the old Superman stuff from the 40s, where you would see the guy playing Superman. I don't know if it was George Reeves or what.
Oh, but the TV series,
I think it was films though, but
they would film them, and I think he did a couple of movies. He did Superman versus the Mole Men.
Mm-hmm.
I think was one, and then there was another film, but it was primarily.
I saw a clip probably a month ago or so of whoever it was who was playing him, launching himself out the window, with just enough
to be kind of believable.
Just enough of a leap to believe that the next frame could be him flying, and then they actually animated like cartoons Superman flying until they got to another
destination, and then
where he would jump and land.
Oh wow, I'll have to look at those again. It's been a long time.
Actually, for the day that it was made, it was pretty believable, because they only did a few frames that way. So,
well, remember in 1978 when the Christopher Reeve Superman came out? That was, I got to tell you, for you younger folks, that movie, the tagline was "You'll believe a man can fly," because they were so proud of the visuals. And when you look at it,
you can tell he was lying on some kind of a rectangle.
There was of course the rear screen stuff, but what they did that no other Superman movie had done before was when he took off and he landed, they were using and it was new technology then, relatively, the thing with the strings. So the
wires and the harness.
Yeah, the wires. He was actually physically coming down out of the sky when he would land, and then when he'd take off, they'd lift him. And no Superman movie had ever done that part realistically. So it was impressive. It was wow. And I think what they should have done was I think that the first hour and a half of number one and about an hour of number two would be the perfect Superman movie of that era. Basically the best parts of number one. And
I agree, especially the Richard Donner cut.
Yeah. Well, the Super battle
stuff, is. I'm not.
Yeah, there were parts that to me it dragged a little bit. I tend to not give a flying crap about too much love story stuff. I mean, my God, when I'm going to see a Superman movie, it's not about, Clark and Lois.
It's about kicking ass. Yeah.
It's about Superman,
But,
just like,
I have to admit, in the Christopher Reeve movies with Margot Kidder, to me, even as a kid, when I thought, oh, that's all this mushy stuff.
Yeah.
Even then, I thought, it was an appropriate amount. It didn't.
Yeah, they didn't overdo it.
It wasn't a chick flick. They didn't. Yeah, they didn't overdo it.
One of my favorite moments is they're talking when he gives her the interview, and they're into it, and then she's asking him a question, and then he goes, "Pink." She goes, "What?" And he goes, "Pink." And she remembers that she asked him to tell her what color underwear she was wearing. So then she steps behind the lead thing.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a nice little touch.
A little bit naughty.
Yeah, but it had it was really cool. Here we are talking about Superman on a Wolfman show,
and we're going to have to get right back to werewolves.
Yes, we are.
But I did want to mention that Tessa D777 is here.
Hey,
Always
Tessa!
Good to see Tessa. And Canadian Spider-Man.
I hope everything's squaring away for you by the time Thanksgiving hits, so that you have a good Thanksgiving up there.
And Canadian Spider-Man says, it should always be about Superman. So, and Darius Munchausen says, Super Lethal Weapon Man.
There you go. Ultimate Donner film.
And Herc 130 reminds me that Mario Puzo wrote the screenplay for Superman and Superman 2, which I totally forgot about.
Yeah, I did. I did too.
And the Reluctant Dragon says, I saw a werewolf drinking a pina colada at Trader Vic's.
I got to go to Trader Vic's. I got to go to Clifton's.
I used to go to Trader Vic's all the time.
I haven't even been to Clifton's. That's embarrassing. My son's been there a couple of times. I haven't been. But you asked me about some werewolf movies, and I remembered one right before coming on here with you that I wanted to throw out there before I forget.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an obscure little movie titled House of the Wolfman. YouTube it, Google it. This was directed by Eben Magar. Eben and his brother John were the ones who were had greenlit Secret of the Amazon Queen back in the before 2010, like 2008 or something. And John unfortunately tragically was killed, and he was kind of the glue of the company, and they kind of halted operations. In fact, that happened 9 days after the movie was a go, and I met with their distributor in Paramount, and they had just finished and transferred to, or they were in the middle of transferring to the DVD, not Blu-ray yet back then, for this film, House of the Wolfman. And so they really liked doing these retro things. And House of the Wolfman has Ron Chaney, who is the grandson of
Lon Chaney
Jr. And it's a lot of fun. Dracula's in the thing, Frankenstein's in the thing. It's shot like it's in the 40s. Great sets. It's just really fun. And I'm telling you, there's like a fight scene between the Wolfman and Frankenstein that's just really cool. And I really want to see that movie, distributed more widely than it is, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And before we get into the werewolves aspect for our deep dive, I wanted to mention that we have a very special giveaway at the end of our show for our lucky weekly winner. And I would like Walter to please tell us what it is.
Well, I thought about this, and I thought, since this is a pop culture episode, I was thinking that it's I have a couple of, I was thinking my time travel novel.
I will see you in time.
I will see you in time.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. So, mods, please know that our giveaway is going to be Walter's book, I Will See You in Time. And that will be our giveaway, is an autographed copy of that. So hang around until the end of the show. That's when we spin the wheel, and our lucky winner every week wins a copy of an autographed copy of a book or a DVD or something, depending on who our guest is. But as tonight's guest is Walter, and he writes books and publishes his own books, then an autographed book it will be. Now, I also had another thing that I wanted to talk about before we get really deep into the Wolfman stuff. Yes. And that's my helicopter footage.
Indeed. Yes.
So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about myself that you maybe didn't know, maybe don't want to know. But I've had some interesting helicopter experiences. And I have one to show you. The one that I really wanted to show you is too long, and my StreamYard is screwing up, and it won't let me show the 6-minute one, which might be a little long anyway. Maybe I can edit it down for a later episode. But I woke up yesterday and I heard what sounded like 4 or 5 helicopters in the air, really low to the ground, because I could hear the chicka, 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 pretty loud. It wasn't shaking the house or anything, although I have had those experiences before many, many years ago. But this one was pretty early in the morning, and it was basically very slowly hovering in a circle around my house. And I could not figure what the fuck this guy was. It looked like they were searching for something, looking for something. And then I said, you won't hear it on the clip I'm going to play, but on the second clip, which is substantially longer, I said, they must think I know too much about flying saucers. And the minute that I said that, the thing took off, regular speed. Instead of just really slowly disappearing, it took off. So, yeah, I had an interesting experience, and I'm going to share it with you. So,
do it.
Be prepared. Now, I wasn't, and this is a short clip because it kind of disappeared behind some trees, but it'll give you an idea of what I saw. And when it turns into a little blob, it's not a UFO. The camera just had to refocus. So I believe this was a real helicopter, but its movement and everything was strange. I could hear it. Everything else was legit. Anyway, here we go.
Just going around and around and around, really slowly. What is this guy doing? What is he looking for? Just going around and around and around and around.
So as you can tell, he was going really, really slowly. I mean, when I first came out and I looked up, It looked like he was just sitting there and hovering, but he was going in this really lazy circle all the way around my house. And like I said, this is not the first interesting experience I've had with helicopters.
From your vantage point, could you make out any markings on the copter?
No, but it was getting close to noon, and it looked like later when I watched the second longer bit of footage that I took, it looked like a white helicopter.
Okay.
But at the time, it looked like it was stainless steel because the sun was just glinting off of it like mad. But I couldn't see the tail.
The make and model of it and the configuration that I could make out, looks like one of the classic models that, you're talking law enforcement, fire, or news media, commonly use. How close is your house to any kind of interstate?
Pretty close.
Okay, because we have a similar thing go on here a couple times a year. And it has to do, when it happens here, it often has to do with somebody that they're watching on the freeway and they got off the freeway and they're in the area. And so the chopper's kind of keeping an eye on them. It could be that these are all just could be's. Another thing you need to think about too is there will be needs of the county or city in their zoning and with the cartography, and they will go out sometimes and have the aerial surveillance. They'll request that a piece be observed, data noted, and maybe even photographed, and then the end user of that data and that photographs is simply the county clerks who are, maybe there could be some zoning thing, or maybe there's a big construction project being considered and they want to get an aerial, so I would say keep your eyes and ears open for learning about any big construction projects that come up, announced in your area. But next time it happens, did you hear any sirens?
No.
Okay.
No, although I will say this, when I woke up, it was because there were, like I said, I could hear 4 or 5 distinct helicopters in the sky, and that's so many helicopters. I thought to myself, that can't be helicopters. It's got to be like lawn mowing day, because in my neighborhood, they're courteous enough to all mow their lawns on the same day.
Yeah.
But this time of year in Kansas, I mean, it's been in the 20s for, I don't know, 10 or 11 days at night. And so nobody's doing any mowing. And by the time I, put on clothes and got downstairs with my iPhone so I could take footage of this thing, there was just this one, but it was very low. Now tonight I had another helicopter experience just before the show, and this one was much lower. I could see the lights on it. It was definitely under the 500-foot FCC ceiling.
Okay, that would
FAA. I'm sorry, not FCC. But
that to me, I
live close enough to the hospital where it's possible that it was a life flight helicopter, but it wasn't headed toward Kansas City. It was headed south, not north.
Okay.
So
how near?
This was really strange.
Are you near any airfields or airports?
No. KCI is about an hour away by car. And so I have lived under the flight path of KCI from like Topeka. Fort Riley isn't too far away. It's on the other side of Topeka from here. but I don't usually see those kind of
because I mean, you know that I have Redlands Municipal right here close by, and even closer is the San Bernardino International Airport, which I still refer to as the base, Norton Air Force Base. And so you know, all the sheriff's helicopters and stuff I know go back and forth between the base, the fire helicopters, but we have a lot of private helicopter flights that go between Redlands Municipal and the mountain towns like Lake Arrowhead and Big Bear and stuff. But what's interesting is when you see them under that 500 feet, that's going to be law enforcement, medical, or some type of emergency type of responder. So that's interesting. You know what I would do is go back and do kind of a diary of when you saw this, the day, the time of day, and just do a local search on your media to see what was going on. And if you come up with nothing was going on and nothing, you know, what am I saying here? Eliminate the mundane, and you're left with potentially
whatever else, no matter how improbable, must be the truth.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, let's get into the werewolf stuff.
Indeed.
Since that's why we're here. Now, we're going to talk about some movies, and then we're going to talk about some books, because the entire and I think that you'll agree with me, Walter, that the entire werewolf / vampire thing more or less got started in Europe when the grain in the storage areas became tainted with ergot, and people got ergot poisoning, which is basically LSD, and they started seeing witches and vampires and werewolves all over the damn place.
I don't know. That sounds like a cover up to me. Or it's consider this. People might have been hallucinating things, but that doesn't mean that they don't really exist.
That's true.
I mean, there's that possibility, but yeah, you're right about the European, particularly the Eastern European origin. This is why when you watch the old Universal movies, in the Wolfman, you have the Hungarian gypsy woman, right? Mm-hmm. You have in the Frankenstein films and stuff, but that's because this lore, with the exception of France, this lore is mostly Eastern European in our times. Now, France, of course, had their stories, which came out of, what was it? Epidemic's not the word I'm looking for, but they had a period of time where they were having trouble with literal wolves outside of the city limits, mm-hmm. right? And people were getting, mauled to death and such by actual wolves. And this kind of, blew up into this extraordinary supernatural level fear. And suddenly they became werewolves. And because think about it, many of us, I want to say all of us these days, I don't know, but many of us grew up going camping and have spent time out in the wilderness, right? And I'm telling you, no matter how mundane and it's all nature and stuff during the daytime when you're in the city, go out there in the wilderness, go out there at night. Step away from your campfire a little bit in the woods and the forest at night. And I guarantee you a coyote to a lot of people will
sound
seem like the wolf man, and an elk, going will mm-hmm. be convincingly Sasquatch to a lot of people.
If you're not used to those noises, you can mistake them for just about anything. Now, what we're looking at on the screen right now is, of course, the original Lon Chaney, The Wolfman. And this is the film in which it said, even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and autumn moon is bright.
Indeed.
So, Walter, being the pop culture junkie that you are, what can you tell us about the original The Wolfman?
Well, I grew up, like a lot of people, loving this movie. For many, many years, it was my favorite of the Universal monster movies. Don't know why, it just struck me. Yeah, Brian McCann's right. There's werewolf stories in all cultures, but we in our modern times with the films and stuff have really been mostly influenced by the Eastern European lore in particular. Thailand in particular has some interesting stuff, but this film, The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr., it actually was the second of the Wolfman films to come out in that era, right on the heels of The Werewolf of London, starring Henry
interesting
Hall.
That you should mention The Werewolf of London.
There we go. There you go. There's Henry Hall. And
I'm going to break one of my own cardinal sins, if you'll pardon the pun. And we're going to watch the trailer for Werewolf of London, because a lot of people, especially younger folks in our orbit, may not have even heard of this film.
I want to say real quick, one thing I personally appreciate about the story in this one is that he becomes a werewolf while out on an archaeological scientific expedition in Tibet. And
no spoilers for the trailer.
I love that kind of thing. Oh, that's in the beginning. That doesn't give anything away.
Okay, let's go ahead and check it out. This is the trailer for Werewolf of London, and if I get a copyright strike, you may not see me again.
Seize the only specimen of the Mariphasa plant in England. That flower is the only known antidote for werewolfery. A very interesting folk tale, but of no value to the police. I warn you, sir, unless you secure this plant, there will be an epidemic that will turn London into a shambles.
When my experiments are completed, I will show their results to the entire world, not before.
Remember this, Dr. Glendon. The werewolf instinctively seeks to kill the thing it loves best.
You brought this on me that night in Tibet.
Sorry, I can't share this with you.
That's great. That's good stuff. I like how that last shot there looks like the Shadow, the character, the Shadow.
And that was, of course, Warner Oland, who played Charlie Chan.
Yeah.
And during the trailer, 2 people in the chat got that. Now, Maddie's daddy says, now I want to watch this.
If you get, in fact, I have it in my movie collection, Beyond the Purple Curtain here.
Beyond the Purple
If
Curtain.
you get, I got the ones from a few years ago. They're DVDs. They're in the green boxes. I got the Universal Wolfman collection, which you get the original Lon Chaney film. You also get Werewolf of London. Of course, you get Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman and on and so forth.
I checked out my Abbott and Costello Meets collection before the show, and I've got everything except the Wolfman. I don't know if they did an Abbott and Costello Meets the Wolfman, but they've got
want to say they did,
they've got
but now that I think
Frankenstein's
about
monster. They've got everything except for that.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about werewolf movies, I wanted to go ahead and share this one here with you. I'll make myself a little bigger. And this is An American Werewolf in London.
Yes. Classic. Great film.
Now, this is my Universal Monsters Blu-ray box.
Nice.
And since I have gotten an Ultra HD 4K box, which actually has more movies in it. But this also has a booklet in it that says the original House of Horror, and there's the Wolfman right there.
Excellent.
And in the box, you get Dracula and Frankenstein.
I like those discs. I like the graphics.
And the Mummy.
I just watched the Hammer Curse of the Mummy's Tomb the other night.
Oh, yeah?
That's a fun film.
It comes with the Invisible Man. And, of course, the box fell below where I can't get it. Bride of Frankenstein and the Wolfman.
Masterpiece, Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great film. And it also comes with the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Gill Man, as he is known, and a bonus features disc.
Excellent.
So that's a lot of fun.
Beautiful.
And I actually do have some graphics to show you because I prepared them before the show. And we can go ahead and...
Yeah, I'll reiterate, if you like Werewolf of London, the trailer, and you love the first Wolfman, look for House of the Wolfman from My Way Pictures.
Now, this is one of my favorite movies, and actually I have a 4-movie box set of the Underworld series. And something that a lot of people don't know about Underworld is that it was written and conceived of by Kevin Grievous, whose last name is spelled at the end in the French way with the IUX. And he's, if you've ever seen Underworld or the Underworld movies, he's sort of the main huge, I mean, this guy is just horking huge black dude that's sort of like the lead Lycan, if you will. And he wrote the screenplay. He came up with the screen story. The whole thing was his idea. And the guy has a voice that's lower than this. I mean, he has a really basso profundo voice.
The Lycans.
I thought it was really cool that he was in the movie. You know, because a lot of times somebody comes up with a screenplay and brings it to a studio. If you're lucky enough, you know, they might give you a check for $10,000 and say, "Get out of here, kids, you're bothering me."
We'll do what we want with your idea. Yeah. The Lycans, as they call them in that film, the werewolves in Underworld, are just really cool. They do a hell of a job.
And I tell you what, the stuntmen that were on those things, and they had to be stuntmen rather than actors, because they were walking around on stilts that made it look like they had wolf legs, you know. And so these guys were probably either stuntmen or acrobats or both. And I imagine that they used them, you know, throughout the entire series of films, because it's not very easy to be in a convincing werewolf outfit that's, you know, 8 feet tall, wearing stilts and walking around and I mean, I can't imagine doing that. You have to be a young man and a spry man to do that.
This brings us back to the Skinwalker Ranch dogmen story.
Oh,
I want you to go in the last dozen years or so. We have seen a couple of athletes, one in particular who's an Olympic athlete, a track athlete who had lost his legs in Iraq.
And that's right. I've seen that guy.
He runs on the blade leg things. Okay. Now I want you to think about that. If they have these believable masks, could it be possible that they had those things actually could have been developed where you'd cover them with dog legs or dog feet, and it's actually just those kind of very
well, it wouldn't be hard because, like I said, allegedly they were wearing trench coats.
Yeah, so they could have been standing have a shoe on the top of these things, And you know, because you can be very agile. It's not just like regular stilts like you see at the circus. It's a, you know, so anyway, that kind of made me think there's another possibility that they could have had dog legs and still have been operatives messing with somebody. But now, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there going to be another Underworld film? Did I hear that?
There was a fifth Underworld film that was it was called something Blood.
And
it was basically about how in the future they had taken Kate Beckinsale's character and put her in some sort of cryo freezing scenario. And then when she was able to get out of it, or she was Blood Wars. Thank you, Brian McCann. I appreciate that. Blood Wars, which was a so-so movie. But when she is either rescued or breaks out of this cryogenic container, she has a daughter. And so the plot revolves around her daughter. Now, is there a new one after that?
I don't know. For some reason, I was thinking that they were going to revive the Underworld series, but I want to say that I think it was the fourth one that I saw when it came out years ago at the at one of the IMAX theaters, and that was kind of fun to see one of those on such, you know, a big screen.
I really liked the third one, and I think that among people that have seen, you know, the whole series. It's widely regarded as the best of the three, even though Kate Beckinsale isn't in it. Rona Mitra is the lead, the female lead in that movie. But there's a good reason for that, because it's a story-driven movie instead of just people talking about their emotions in hallways. It's a prequel, and it goes back to sort of the Middle Ages in a medieval era. And you get to see not Victor, but the other vampire elder who, as they explain in the first movie, you know, they leapfrog through time, one being awake, the other being asleep. And it turns out it's Derek Jacobi, who plays the elder. And this was my first introduction to Michael Sheen, the actor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm sure that he had done stuff before that. He was in the original Underworld movie, for instance, but you know, he was, pardon the pun, he was really able to sink his teeth into that role and not let go. And his performance was amazing.
Did he chew the scenery?
He chewed up the scenery. Absolutely. He did. He left his mark on that movie, and you know,
and had a howling good time.
That's right. But you know, he's a very serious actor, and he played it totally straight. And you know, for me, I really appreciated the fact that this, you know, here's this great actor who's really getting into the role of being sort of a feral human, sort of a half wolf, half human. But he's also in that film and all of his other films, he's also very intelligent. You know, he delivers lines in a really snappy, snarky way. And that was my favorite part, and I think a lot of people's favorite part of the third one. The Rise of the Lycans is what that one's called. So, and Muzzle Velocity says Rona Mitra was also an amazing looking vampire princess. And Brian McCann says in 2020, Kate dropped out of doing future Underworld films. Len Wiseman is willing to do the series without her, but nothing has come of it so far.
Okay. So, yeah, I thought I'd heard that they were going to revive that. Yeah. But, you know, you showed before you showed the trailer to Werewolf of London. Of course, you showed the graphic for an American Werewolf in London.
I just held up the Blu-ray box.
The thing, yeah. And that goes back to the second great stage of werewolf movies. The Underworld series was the third because it brought the advent of the CGI, right? Into what you can do with transformation with CGI, obviously. But in between the 40s and our times, starting with Underworld, there was the amazing physical werewolf transformations done by Rob Bottin for The Howling. And then, of course, oh my gosh, was it Rick Baker that did it for American Werewolf in London?
Yes.
Yeah, and Rick Baker's. Now, some people think that the one in The Howling is as good or better than American Werewolf in London, but I remember seeing this film when it first came out, and the similar to the Superman movie, this one, when you saw that type of transformation on screen in a werewolf movie, that was just, and there's a lot more about that movie to like that makes it really good, but the transformation.
Essentially, An American Werewolf in London is a comedy about werewolves. A couple of Jewish guys strolling through the Highlands of Scotland, who are backpacking across Scotland, get attacked by a werewolf, and then it's a John Landis movie. It's a comedy, but the horror
is
a horror comedy.
The elements in it, the horror is horror. You're not laughing when someone's attacked by that werewolf.
No.
You're not laughing during there's some good scares in it.
And of course, you can see Jenny Agutter right here.
Yeah, Jenny Agutter. Oh,
ooh, always good to see Jenny Agutter.
Yeah,
moving right.
There's a generation of us that ever since Logan's Run, we're like,
I'm
Jenny,
part of that generation, man. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying. Guys like you and I, we grew up. Logan's Run introduced us to Jenny Agutter.
I used to have it on my wall behind me. It's over there because I have to hang up different stuff every once in a while. But
and then we got The Howling here, which Robert Picardo of
Voyager
fame was the the major transformation in the Howling film before his Star Trek days.
Probably the best thing about Star Trek Voyager was Robert Picardo. And I don't know if you can see over here, I have Robert Picardo's signature.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
I have, let's go ahead and go back to this so I can make myself big again. So this has William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, Robert Picardo, and Ethan Phillips autographs.
Very cool.
I don't know if you can
make
out those. But
that might explain those helicopters. People are circling over your place because they want to get their hands on your collection.
Well, they can't.
Other collectors,
Walter, they can't have it.
You'll fight them. You'll fight them.
I'll bring in one of my buddies who used to be an old AFOSI agent. And
that's right. There you go. You know people. You're connected.
That's true. I do.
Also in The Howling, of course, was Dee Wallace.
Yes.
She was known as Dee Wallace Stone, I think. And in fact, he was at her late husband was in that movie with her. Chris Stone, right? Chris, I think.
Now let me ask your opinion real quick, Walter. Do you prefer this, which is what I got off of the internet, or what I'm about to show you, which is hanging on my wall? That's a poster that's actually on my downstairs wall right now.
And is that's probably an original lobby poster, right?
You bet it is.
What do you see as the main difference other than the lighting and color?
Well, this one has a lot more depth, has a lot more black, has a lot more. I mean, if you look at the woman screaming, her mouth is black. And, if you go back up to this one here, it's just, it lacks all of that definition. It's not black. You can see her tongue. You can kind of make out her eye, over here.
I like, you're right. I like the the one you have.
Yeah,
the darker one. Now, I want to say something about this. It's based on, well, there was one book at the time by Gary Brandner, and I read that when I was, I think, a freshman in high school, or maybe I was in junior high. The Howling books, I had read the first 2 Howling books. Now, the Howling 2 film is not based on the Howling 2 novel, but so when this movie came out, I was already familiar with what it was about. Of course, there's some little differences, but it has the same basic plot and stuff. And this one, the John Landis one, is your kind of just at the A level, studio, playing in all the multiplexes or whatever, kind of film, high entertainment value for a broad audience who likes horror, even though there's some R-rated stuff in it, obviously, for the day. The Howling, it's a lower budget, and it's obvious, and it has that wonderful American Werewolf in London. Not that you can't watch any movie at a drive-in, but you'll know what I mean by that. American Werewolf in London is your mainline walk-in theater kind of movie, whereas the Howling,
mainstream,
the Howling is the kind of movie that you
it's more of a grindhouse.
Well, grindhouse, but at a drive-in. You would expect to see at least the kind of films I grew up going to the drive-in seeing. And so even though they're both in the same genre of horror, werewolf films, they're in different categories. And so I don't compare the two as far as which one's better, because they're different categories. Each one is great in its own category. The Howling also has some stop motion animation in it.
Yes, it does.
Puts it over the top, and it has John Carradine, and it has Patrick McNee, and
great character actors.
Oh, and Forey Ackerman.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I believe he's in the bookstore, and Dick Miller owns the bookstore that she goes to in the Howling.
The guy from A Bucket of Blood.
Forey's perusing, and he says, "Are you going to buy those?" And Forey's like, what's that?
That's great.
So, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's.
I've shown you my photos of me and my brother meeting Forrest Ackerman.
Yeah. So,
all right, let's move right along, because we've got a lot.
Yeah, The Howling is a delight. Check it out. And then, of course, before we get to Silver Bullet, because that's after The Howling, another one that I mentioned to you, I want to recommend. 1972. Saw it at the drive-in, low budget. It's a delight if you like these cheesy delights. It's titled The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, and Kerwin Matthews plays the lead, who turns into the werewolf. He, of course, was Sinbad the Sailor.
Why do you do this, Walter? Why do you get ahead of me when you very well know that I have the graphic for that coming up next?
Didn't know.
Why, Walter? Why do you do these things?
Let's do Silver Bullet.
Why? No, I'm kidding. Silver Bullet, of course, based on the wonderful Bernie Wrightson Stephen King graphic novel Cycle of the Werewolf, which I read when I was, I don't know, too young to read this kind of stuff.
And Wrightson, I just loved it. Was a master. Bernie Wrightson.
Yeah. We're talking about 2 masters of horror here.
Yeah.
Stephen King and Bernie Wrightson. But again, moving right along.
Oh, there it is. I apologize. I won't jump ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just yanking your chain. It's okay. You are the pop culture junkie, so you get to to talk ahead of where I think we're going. But if I shared my show notes with you, that would probably help. But now, please do tell us about The Boy Who Cried Werewolf.
Well, like I said, it was a 1972, I believe 72, maybe 71, but I recall it being 1972. Just delight, drive-in, low-budget horror movie delight. I believe there's an interaction with kind of a hippie cult that was pretty funny. And yes, Roger Corman is in The Howling. That's right. And Kerwin Matthews, of course, he was probably at or toward the end of his career, so to speak. as a leading man. And again, like I said, he was in the Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, that Harryhausen classic. If you've ever seen that. And basically this kid's dad is turning into a werewolf, and no one will believe him. The Michael Pare film from, I think, about 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, Blood Moon, I think it's titled, is similar in plot.
And in case no one has ever seen Ginger Snaps, the trilogy,
yes,
great fucking movies.
Yeah,
Ginger
Ginger Snaps films are
just
a lot
amazing.
of fun. They're
great
good
movies.
stuff.
And Tessa D77 says, what about Wolfen, the Whitley Strieber one, right?
Yeah, which is an interesting, it's kind of a different take on the werewolf thing, right? Because aren't they technically an alien intelligence or something, or not? No, or a hidden intelligence or something, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, not an alien intelligence, but
I want to interrupt. I apologize. I need to ask Anti-Derivative Jill to please send me via Twitter this link so that I can make it into a banner like this, and so that I can also have people's comments on at the same time. So please tweet that to me if you would, Jill, and then I'll be able to do both at the same time, which is kind of what I'm known for, doing two things at once. So after The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, now we have the Benicio del Toro 2010 version of The Wolfman, which I quite liked.
It I don't dislike
not so much.
this movie. I like it. I recognize that there were I hated to see this movie not do better than it did, because he's a huge fan of the of the Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman, Universal classic, and this was done in the spirit of a remake of that. That's the spirit of this. I wasn't crazy about the little, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but there's a major difference in the relationship between he and his father, Larry Talbot and his father, that I felt was a little too typical of the retconning of everything that kind of started back then about 10 years ago. And I was like, okay, this is a little too much for me. But it is a high budgeted, the transformation in this is that one transformation scene in the asylum is just, you've got to see it. It's wow. And not just how the transformation looks, but dramatically how it plays out, now
again, Ari in the chat brings up Love, Dog, Soldiers, and of course that is a wonderful werewolf movie that we both forgot to add.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got that one too on a
Love,
DVD.
Dog, Soldiers, great Sean Pertwee movie, of course, the son of the third Doctor, John Pertwee. And you're a Whovian, aren't you, Walter?
You mean Doctor Who fan? No.
Oh, okay.
It never clicked with me.
Sean Pertwee, for Halloween a few years ago, put on his dad's old costume and like a wig. And, there's a photo of him with an iPhone and he's taking his own picture, and he looks for all the world exactly like his dad.
Like his dad? Yeah.
I mean, he looks just like John Pertwee.
Because John did, he did some Hammer stuff, right?
He did some horror movies. I don't know if he did Hammer or not.
Was he in the Roman Polanski, the Fearless Vampire Killers? Or wait, is that the title? Which was the Polanski one?
It's called The Fearless Vampire Killers, or Pardon Me, But Your Fangs Are in My Neck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But he had done, and he did an anthology Hammer horror film. That's cool, though. That's cool. That
And Tom Baker, the Fourth Doctor, also was in an anthology horror film.
Oh yeah, well he was great in the Harryhausen Sinbad. Was he in Eye of the Tiger or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sinbad
yeah.
and the Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, he was the sorcerer. Yeah.
Now I will say this: Doctor Who never grabbed me, but the first Doctor Who I was introduced to was the Tom Baker version. So in my mind, I think of, and I was aware that John Pertwee had done the Daleks film and had been
Daleks. They're called Daleks, not Daleks.
The Daleks.
Yeah.
One thing, going back to the Benicio del Toro Wolfman, though, was even though it's really cool to see the more not canonization, but caninization of werewolves in movies. What I liked was he took that 1941 Lon Chaney Jr. Concept that I think Jack Pierce did the makeup on, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it wasn't yet, but where it's a wolf man, and they did that version of him. But and it looked really good. It was very convincing because with the modern technology, it's you would imagine if they could have done this in 1941, this is what
they
the
would
Lon
have.
Chaney Wolfman. Yeah, they would have, and this is what the Lon Chaney Wolfman would have looked like. And as I mentioned to you when we talked about this before, the rumor going around is that Ryan Gosling, like Del Toro, is a huge fan of the original Chaney film, and he apparently is pushing for a remake. So we'll see. Now I gotta ask you a question. Universal released this, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was this going to be part of the Dark Universe?
I think it probably was. Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Before Alex Kurtzman fucked it up.
Yeah.
With the mummy.
We just Yeah, you mean
we could have had a whole new universe from Universal.
But they had to make a Tom Cruise commodity.
Hey, at least we've got a MonsterVerse, So, and actually, this is going to be an interview of and with me on a different show, Masters of the Genre. But I have my copy of G-Fan right here.
Okay.
And in this episode, or I keep calling them episodes, they're issues. In this issue, it goes into now I have to admit myself. I'm trying to multitask. It goes into the project that I was involved with, which, as it turns out, we got this close, literally like this close to getting on the air.
Yeah.
And I was sweating bullets about how am I going to write 26 fucking episodes of Godzilla a year? Because back then they didn't have writers' rooms,
Yeah.
But this actually goes into detail and talks about how our project eventually stimulated the current MonsterVerse. So
that's cool.
I have a little connection to that.
There you go. That's very cool.
So
maybe it'll come around full circle and that'll reactivate that project.
From your mouth to God's ears. Now, I do want to go ahead and focus on some Montague Summers stuff, because one of my favorite authors, I believe one of your favorite authors, and I'm just going to read a little bit here about Montague Summers. Augustus Montague Summers, April 10th, 1880 to August 10th, 1948, was an English author, clergyman, and teacher. He initially prepared for a career in the Church of England at Oxford and Lichfield, and was ordained as an Anglican deacon in 1908. He then converted to Roman Catholicism and began styling himself as a Catholic priest. He was, however, never affiliated with any Catholic diocese or religious order, and it is doubtful that he ever actually was ordained to the priesthood. He was employed as a teacher of English and Latin while independently pursuing scholarly work on the English drama of the 17th century, and the latter earned him election to the Royal Society of Literature in 1916. Noted for his eccentric personality and interests, Summers became a well-known figure in London society as a result of the publication of his History of Witchcraft and Demonology in 1926. That work was followed by other studies on witchcraft, vampires, and werewolves, in all of which he professed to believe. Summers also produced another modern English translation published in 1929 of the 15th century witch hunter's manual, the Malus Maleficarum. He has been characterized as, quote, arguably the most seminal 20th century purveyor of pop culture occultism, close quote. So there you have it.
Great, good stuff. Great stuff. Anybody that's into the literature of this, the lore of this, knows Montague Summers.
Montague Summers is a must read if you've never read Montague Summers. We also have The Vampire in Europe, a critical edition, and The History of Witchcraft, and A Popular History of Witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Malus Maleficarum. Now, I am in possession personally of a couple of these books. I've actually read a lot of Montague Summers, but somewhere along the way, I ended up moving, and I didn't figure out what happened to my books. But here is The Werewolf in Lore and Legend.
That is a wonderful cover.
It is
perfect.
This is his copy, The Werewolf, his book, The Werewolf, which you can't see very well in this light, but has a really great woodcut for a cover, and for a back cover as well. And we have his Witchcraft and Black Magic book here. And A Popular History of Witchcraft. And my understanding is that all of his work is now in the public domain.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And you may have something to tell us about that.
A couple of them are, one or two are reaching public domain next year. A few of them already are. Another great scholar of these things, these kinds of topics, was Sabine Baring-Gould. And Todd Wood and this is primarily a Todd Wood project. We are coming out as editors of a classic reprint of the Sabine Baring-Gould Book of Werewolves. And I'm hoping to have that out by Thanksgiving weekend.
Very cool.
And available print on demand. And it's just another Baring-Gould. If you look him up, it was another really great scholar of lore and literature and such. But next year, Todd and I are going to be releasing a Montague Summers book as well. So more on that in January. But for now, it's the Book of Werewolves by Sabine Baring-Gould. And I'm really looking forward to getting that out there.
I'm really looking forward to buying it. Now, this is the last Montague Summers book that I'm going to share from my personal library. But this was the first one that I ever wrote. I wrote a Montague Summers book. It's called The Vampire, His Kith and Kin. And this is just a wonderful, wonderful book. I recommend it very highly. These are all available on Amazon. And, there is a vampire movie that we missed, even after all the stuff that we've been talking about. I do, of course, have my steel box of the original Universal Wolfman.
Oh, yes, nice.
And this has your 4K HD and a Blu-ray.
Excellent.
So you can watch either one.
Let's also not forget that the classic original Dark Shadows series had its werewolf plot line. A couple of characters would turn into werewolves.
Well, you just made a Reed very happy. He's the original Dark Shadows fan in my life, anyway. But and of course the ever popular Van Helsing, with Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale.
The mixed bag film. There's some great elements to that movie. Then there's some that are like, eh. But I agree with this. Somebody brought up that this Van Helsing movie, I got news for you folks. That is not Van Helsing. You know who it is? It's Robert E. Howard's Solomon Kane.
It is, absolutely.
If they would have just come out with that movie and had him be Solomon Kane, which is how he's dressed, with the things he does.
Unfortunately, the Solomon Kane movie had already come out by then.
It was done, but they were in that weird limbo where they couldn't get a distributor, which kind of screwed over when they did release it. Because the Solomon Kane movie, for me, again, it's another kind of mixed bag. There's elements of it. One part of it that's a little slow for me. But for the most part, I would have liked to have seen that movie get a little more proper attention and, could have led to a sequel or two.
Now, before we get too far ahead,
I
wanted to show you this.
Oh, cool.
This is a box set of Elvira's movie Macabre. And on this cover, which isn't all that well lit, you're seeing a 71-year-old Cassandra Peterson.
Wow. That's impressive.
And she's still smoking hot. Now, the reason that I bring this up isn't because it has a cool, coffin
graphic
thing, or that you can take the cool graphic out, and all of the movies are on discs that are basically just stacked onto one another.
Cool.
It's not because there's a cool little booklet inside that goes through all the movies in coffin-shaped paper.
Oh,
it's
cool.
not for any of those reasons. The reason that I brought it up, Walter, is because it contains a film that I'd never heard of, and I thought for tonight's purposes, I would mention it. And now, of course, the discs have come out and won't go back in. The Werewolf of Washington. Have you heard of that?
No.
I've never heard of that either, but it's on the list there with all these other movies. 13 discs of movies, and they're not all bad. Satanic Rites of Dracula is on here. Teenagers from Outer Space, which is one of my personal favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Don't Look in the Basement. Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter is one of my favorites because I own the Joe Bob Briggs commentary edition, which is just great. But Scared to Death, Tormented, The Manster, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, The Terror, all kinds of great stuff here.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not being paid to shill for Elvira, but I would in a heartbeat. And boy, does she make my heart beat, if you know what I'm saying, and I think you do.
Indeed.
And I think that, yes, that is the end of my photo help for the evening. So we'll just kind of go round and round. Now, we are going to go ahead and talk a little bit about some Eastern European vampire and werewolf lore, as you had mentioned before. Now, I had what was, I believe, called it was some sort of a psychological evaluation, and it was with this this PhD gal from Kansas City that was only in Lawrence once a week. Kansas City's about an hour away from where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And so she had like this satellite office, and I had to go see her for some reason. And the first time I saw her and the second time that I saw her were 6 months apart. So she forgot a lot of what I told her. And so in the second one, I'm trying to tell her what it's like to be OCD, to have obsessive compulsive disorder, which I have been diagnosed with. If you haven't been able to tell, have to have my microphone just right. But I was explaining to her a piece of Eastern European folklore about vampires. And actually, no, this would have been in the first meeting. And I mentioned that back then, the villagers, peasants, whatever, travelers on the road, merchants, I guess, would carry grain in their pockets. Think of it as grains of rice.
Mm-hmm.
And when they came to a crossroads, if they thought they were being followed by a vampire, they would throw out the pocket full of grain, because when the vampire got there, it had to count every single one before it could move on. And then it could continue on. So it was a way of slowing down, the vampire and things like that. So in the second meeting, she had written, "Gil thinks he's a vampire." I'm like, oh my God, I'll get disability for that easy. That was the whole point of my going to this exam, was for disability. But I just thought that was the funniest
That's
thing.
good. That's good.
Yeah. So getting back to the Eastern European lore, as I mentioned before, there was ergot poisoning in the rye bread or the flour, and it caused people to see all kinds of grotesquerie and goblins and stuff like that. And I think that was the reason for the modern vampire and werewolf craze, or the modern compared to thousands of years ago, like we were talking about before.
Right. Yeah. When one of the viewers brought up the fact that, lycanthropic lore it's all over the world, and in every culture, and as was pointed out, in Asia, Southeast Asia, it's there. In very interesting there as well. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, when you look at the werewolf stories, in the films that we're talking about, in the last 100 years of cinema, it really is based on this more geographically close Eastern European lore. And obviously, because that's the people writing that stuff, Kurt Schodmack.
I never knew that's how it was pronounced. I always said Sietamac.
I used to, and then I heard it was either Stephen King or someone in an interview, and then
Shodmack.
Someone else pronounced it Shodmack, and I'm like, ooh, okay, now I know how to pronounce that.
Makes a lot more sense, yeah.
But yeah, and when you look at the type of story, it's very obviously European, because they put that element. Shodmack wrote that into the Wolfman, and it like I said, that nugget, I could see where you go back, the world not too long ago in the big picture of history, not the world still is a brutal place in some places, but not that long ago historically, the whole world was a brutal place. And even the civilized West had its brutalities. And when you combine some brutal atrocities with witnesses being unwittingly whacked out on this LSD type of issue with the food, you could see where, crazed wolfman werewolf stories, you're right, could be reported and believed. Because when you combine psychopathic rage, right, with someone who is prone to hallucinate or let their imagination get out of control, the psychopathic rage can appear monstrous, literally. And, depending upon whatever act of violence they're committing, it's in the mix. And it's no wonder that, modern werewolf stories could emerge from that.
Right. Right. And speaking of modern stories, I guess that's a relative term. I think everybody here is familiar with the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, of which I am a member, and we are both big fans. And we both had a great time interviewing the guys from the HPLHS on Masters of the Genre last year.
I almost wore one of their shirts that I have tonight, but I couldn't resist.
It's too cool a shirt. Yeah.
Pitching the Kaleidoscope Grimoire, because this is too cool. Thank you very much. I
was going to wear it myself, not your shirt. I was going to wear my Kaleidoscope Grimoire shirt. But it's very cold here, so the heat is on, and it's too cold downstairs and it's too hot upstairs.
Yeah, I hear
that shirt has the most plastisol on it of any shirt I've ever seen. So I'm like,
I was concerned. That's why I opened a window, because it's nice and chilly outside. So I knew I was going to wear this.
But I wanted to mention that the guys at the HPLHS have a podcast that's called Voluminous. And the reason it's called Voluminous is that it is, well, let me back up a little bit. The guys at the H.P. Lovecraft Society, Historical Society, were instrumental in getting a huge amount of, actually, I think it's all the known or publicly known correspondence that H.P. Lovecraft did with Robert E. Howard and Chambers and lots of other writers and fans at Brown University from a private collector. And they dug into their pockets and they asked all their members to donate. And it's a good thing that they did. S.T. Joshi, put in a lot of money. And so what they do on this podcast is they read the letters. And the correspondence of H.P. Lovecraft is exactly the same as his fiction. Yeah. He had that florid purple prose and used it in everything that he wrote. He could write a fucking laundry list and it would have unspeakable, and all this kind of stuff in it.
On your advice, last night I told my device to play that podcast, and it played the most recent episode, which happened to be a letter to Robert E. Howard. Yeah. So
great episode, right?
So I haven't finished it because it's one of those that you really got to do some listening, right? Because you don't want to miss the nuances. You want to catch what they're talking, what he's talking about, and that's definitely I'm gonna be listening to a lot of those, probably all of them eventually.
And Malaya Grimm is in the house.
Hey, Malaya, there she is.
Here. Good to see you. And Jason mentions watched Elvira growing up as a kid. That must have been very interesting watching her grow up as a kid. I kid. But of course, yes, I'm a big Elvira fan. Wasn't real big on her Coors stand-up or her Bud stand-up or whatever it was. I thought that was unnecessary. But I guess, when you're walking around a liquor store around Halloween, seeing a life-size Elvira isn't a bad thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. In the 70s, when I was a kid, early 70s, of course, we watched Seymour, the LA-based guy who did Fright Night on Fridays or Saturdays. Fright Night. He was the host. that we watched, and then
Coors
when
Light.
Elvira came out, that changed the game. That was like,
Oh yeah, she was the hostess with the mostest.
Yeah, it was like,
And I love the way she signed off. Unpleasant dreams. That was great.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, because believe it or not, we're almost ready for the spinner wheel. But before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about your new website. Can you please tell us about it?
Years ago, when I started my company, lostcontinentlibrary.com, or Lost Continent Library, I had lostcontinentlibrary.com. And then as things happen, I ended up losing the URL for several years, and I recently got it back. And so lostcontinentlibrary.com lives again. You can go there now. There's still a lot of it under construction. We're bringing it up to speed. And speaking of Malia Grimm, she's my webmeister, and she's bringing all this stuff up to speed for me. But you go there now, and it's links to books, links to what I'm doing, what I do with films, and links to there's going to be walterbosley.com. And you're going to be able, it's going to be one-stop shopping. So when I'm talking about books and you want to know where to get them, the links to the books are now going to be there, and many of them are already. So I'm really excited about having lostcontinentlibrary.com again, and it's perfect timing because it's my 20th anniversary of being in business, such as it is. I'm telling you, you don't get filthy rich off of, believe me, you don't get rich off of being a small press or micro press publishing company. But what I'm proud of is it's been 20 years in business uninterrupted. Every year in those 20 years, I've either released a book or I was putting out the magazine or something. And that in itself can be an accomplishment, in our times. So I'm very proud of this label. And on to the next 20 years,
Yes, and Mazel Tov, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And I really want to extend a compliment to Malia, because this is a wonderful looking website. I've made some websites in my time, and this is not easy to do. So
it's not.
Well done, Malia. Really good to have you here, and it was great to meet you and take the Empire of the Wheel tour with you. And Walter, that was really the highlight of my year.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Like I said at the time, Walter, it made, I think Malia mentioned this too, it makes your Empire of the Wheel books come alive when you go to those locations and you explain in detail all the things that you did.
Yeah.
It really, I think I may come every year.
Well, I'll tell you, when you stand there at the graveside of the mysterious Cora Stanton, when I take you to the spot where Sherry Jo Bates was slaughtered by the Zodiac Killer, I take you to the actual, and it is the spot. I take you to that quarry. It does. It shows you that, okay, this isn't just stuff in a book.
You literally took me to the bridge.
Yeah, it absolutely brings it to life, and I love giving those tours. So,
yeah, it was a wonderful tour, and I'm delighted that I was able to walk and not have to sit down and rest every 5 minutes. I didn't mention this, but I worked out a little bit before I, went to California. Although it's against the advice of my doctor for me to lift anything heavier than 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And standing on, stuff like concrete, cement, asphalt, whatever, were really hard on my back. But I didn't have a problem. I had so much fun, to be honest, on the Empire of the Wheel tour. I know that we're supposed to be talking about werewolves, but I'm sorry I'm gushing all over you, Walter. I'm an unabashed fanboy of your work.
Oh, thank you.
And it was just a lot of fun. And I really encourage anybody that can to take the Empire of the Wheel tour, spend a little time with Walter, and you'll have a great time.
And I'm not going to give away too much here, say any details, but Cardinal Sin and I are going to make some interesting things happen with some fun properties of the Lost Continent Library Publishing Company. So in the future, you'll be hearing us tell you about that.
And looking forward to it. Absolutely.
So
now we are at 2 minutes as of right now. So I'm going to ask for a mod to come on. And the invitation link, I believe, is in the chat. We have a little Twitter group called Cardinal Sin's Mod Squad. But just in case, I'm going to go ahead and send another invitation link. And I'll put that into the Mod Squad group there. And no sooner said than done. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the only Canadian Spider-Man. Hello, sir.
Hi.
There he is.
Awesome.
How are
awesome
you?
show. Thank you very much.
Nice shirt, my friend. Nice shirt.
Shout out to Darius and Jill, my fellow
Excellent.
wrenches.
I see you have a V for Vendetta mask back there.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I wear this every second or third day outside just to remind people.
Never forget. That's right. So do you have a wheel for us, Canadian Spider-Man?
I do. Yeah. I'm going to share it with you right now. I'm going to engage the audio.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. The worst part of this, Walter, as you'll recall, is me seeing my head spin around like The Exorcist. It kind of makes me a little nauseous, but hearing the whirring of the spinner wheel, it calms me a great deal. It's very calming. So, okay, well, here it is right here. We didn't get too many people
courtesy
in
of
on
Jill,
it, but
because you're giving away a Walter Bosley novel.
No, it's we had every time you're here, you break the record. We've had
That's true.
More people here tonight than just about ever before.
Cool.
Certainly
flattering. Thank you all.
More than anyone on any previous of your appearances. And every time you come, you bring more and more people, and it just gets bigger and better.
Well, I tell people all the time about my fiction. My fiction is inspired by and very much infused and inclusive of my nonfiction research. So, don't assume that there's going to be no overlap there. You're missing out if you don't read the fiction.
And before we spin the wheel, CSM, I wanted to mention to everybody that's in the chat or might be viewing this at a later time that if you happen not to win, I will see you in time, or any of Walter Bosley's books. You can always find them at lulu.com and just put in Walter Bosley into the search bar, and you're golden.
The sales page will come up, and the my books and the now
books that you publish,
books and the few other authors that I published, they'll all show up.
Nice.
And Herc130 says, Walter, I am really enjoying Shimmering Light that you sent me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So there's a previous winner right there. It does pay to follow the link. That's all I'm going to say. So Canadian Spider-Man, at your leisure, please.
Yes. All right.
Priest to spin wheel.
Let's engage the wheel.
Oh,
hey, look here.
Johnny
side.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Excellent.
There we go.
I'll get the book ordered. When it's sent to me, I'll sign it. And Johnny's side, make sure I have your address to then send it to you.
And this is proof of what I was telling you before, Walter, that you and I have swapped some subscribers. I believe Jonaside came from your channel.
Okay.
So I appreciate.
And I think I first met him, so to speak, at CW Channers.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of congratulations to Genocide in the chat from Rui and Joe and Don and Herc, Jason, Cam, Sandra. Everybody's getting into the congratulations thing here. Muzzle Velocity, Darius, Munchausen, Maddie's Daddy, Radioactive. Yeah. So, wow, look at that. That's even better.
Cool.
And of course, that's only available for mods only. That's something special that I do for my mods specifically. And thank you, Canadian Spider-Man, for coming on.
Welcome.
And helping
Thank you,
Genocide
Walter.
win this wonderful, wonderful book of Walters.
You're welcome. I will catch you both later.
All right, man.
Excellent show.
Thanks. And of course, it could only be an excellent show if one of our mods shows up to spin the wheel, because I don't know how to do it. So other than lulu.com, lostcontinentlibrary.com, Walter, is there anything else you'd like to say or plug before we wrap up this edition of Into the Fringe?
The others that I used to plug are now linked at lostcontinentlibrary.com, the Empire of the Wheel blog spot and the Lost Continent Library blog spot. It's now, you can get there through lostcontinentlibrary.com. Of course, the Book of Werewolves. I'm shooting to get that out by next weekend, the Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm just pressing on. I have some TV development stuff going on that I'm not announcing yet, but boy, it's Cardinal knows how close I am to having a big announcement with that. But I just my producer and I were holding back until it's a definite, and then
I had a girlfriend that used to tell me advice that I still use to this day, although we haven't been together for, I don't know, 20 years or 25 years. But she used to say, if you talk about it, it won't happen.
That's right. It's best. It's always best to be able to make the announcement that something's happened rather than saying too much before it happens.
Yeah.
And
otherwise it will just disappear.
It can, or if there's nothing magical, if there's no causation there, what it does is it makes you look silly every time you say, oh, this is happening, this is going to happen. And then when it doesn't, you're kind of embarrassed because it doesn't. And then pretty soon people just aren't going to believe you and they're not going to listen to you. So it's always best to just kind of say, I'm working on something. I don't want to say too much, because then you get the satisfaction when it does happen.
Because then you get to walk the walk and not just talk the talk.
Yeah. And but here's the thing about mentioning that it's happening even at all. And this, before it happens, you very often get close several times. And
that's true.
I've been close several times. So I'm on the track for something to happen.
Can I just tell you, Walter, how tired I am of getting close?
Right? Oh, I know. I know. Isn't it?
Thing?
We could have a hilarious discussion about that sometime, about the times we've each gotten close and how it hasn't happened, right? In fact, we should talk about that.
We'll do that next month.
Yeah.
That'll be our topic.
Yeah, it's both the funny and the not so funny ways that these things can fall through.
I'll have to bring you on Masters of the Genre so that we can talk about our screenwriting stuff and how close we've gotten and how it works and what to do and what not to do and how to pitch and how to elevator pitch and all that good stuff.
Yep.
But that's for a different day.
We'll do it.
I did want to before we wrapped up, I did want to mention, of course, again, that everything that Walter writes, whether it's the fiction or the informed nonfiction, is available at lulu.com. You can't find it on amazon.com. And there will be no episode of Into the Fringe next week because it's on Thanksgiving. And although I haven't heard any plans from my family for Thanksgiving, I still wouldn't want to tear anybody away from their family to come on a show where no one's going to show up because they're all with their family eating dinner. So
yeah. What are you having?
Actually,
what are you having?
I'll be busy watching the MST3K Turkey Day Marathon.
Are you having turkey for Thanksgiving?
I'm a vegan, Walter. You know
Oh,
that.
shoot, that's right. Are you what? So what do you?
I'm not doing tofurkey either, which is
We're
faux
doing-
turkey backward.
We're doing Japanese curry, rice, and Cornish game hens.
Can I just tell you something that you may want to mention to Ileana?
Yes.
I am completely spoiled for Thai food now. There are restaurants in Lawrence that serve Thai food, and now I realize how much they suck. So
we have some good Thai chefs here in this town.
Let the folks at the house know that I'm ruined for Thai food now.
Will do.
And that's all that we'll do for tonight, because we need to let Walter have some dinner and do whatever he needs to do. He probably needs to get back to work, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I got some publishing biz to attend to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Walter. It's always wonderful having you on.
Thanks.
And I'm going to go ahead and call it. It's Cardinal Sin out.